An entire world is ready
for you to start your career teaching the path to wellness.
Mastering the science of mindfulness.
And the art of coaching.
To help clients achieve mental, emotional, and physical betterment of life.
Through movement,
nutrition,
recovery, and regeneration.
Because impacting one person impacts a family.
Impacting a family impacts a community.
And impacting a community impacts the world.
Become an NASM certified wellness coach.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2022 and Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my colleague, Ken Miller. How are you, Ken?
Wendy, I am awesome. Good seeing you again.
You too. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you and yours.
And yours and yours.
Ready to rock. Ready to rock.
Ready to rock.
Here we go.
And you know what? New Year's means new beginnings. And so today we're talking about auditing your New Year's resolution, because oftentimes we have all of these things that we are going to change. This is our year. We're going to make new changes, make great things happen. And then usually within the first couple of weeks, mine go down the drain pretty quickly. And so that's why we're going to talk this week about trying to audit and set realistic goals, because I think that's where oftentimes I know myself, I aim super high. And unfortunately, once I start to not get even close to my goal, then I just say, you know what, screw it, I'll try it next year.
Yeah. When you get to the point, it's like September, you're like, well, you know what, I remember setting goals. Yeah, it's like, well, you know what, I got a few months left. Why should I even keep going at it? But this is one of those things that as somebody who makes New Year's, I have friends that say, you know what, forget it. The whole thing about setting up New Year's resolutions, the moment you think about it, whether it's January 1 or June 1 or September 15th, whatever the date may be. I don't know where September 15th came from, but the idea is that the second you make a decision, that's when you should start making moves and start planning to work towards that goal. So when it comes to working with people, or even myself, you got to really evaluate, is this a realistic thing, or is this something that I'm going to stick with this year compared to years prior? So what I think we really want to cover today in this podcast is the fact that, hey, you know what? Great. Have your goals. Know why they're going to be important to you. Again, one of the components of setting goals, and, just to set yourself up for success. So why should this year, why can't this year be any different than other years, or why should it fall under the same path, I guess is what I'm trying to say. To set yourself up and make things, pave the road to, getting what you actually want by the end of the year.
Yeah. And I think it's important to kind of start out by thinking, well, why do goals fail? And I think the number one is, I know for myself, I aim very, very high. I'm very competitive. I set these goals. Sometimes I'm looking at it like, well, and when I set these goals and I'm like, okay, this is my year to do it. It's like, you know what, is it really realistic? And so those kind of go hand in hand for me. Sometimes I aim too high, and then it's like, you know what, it really wasn't realistic. And so that's one thing. But then two, it's like, somebody like Ken, like if you came and said, this is one of your goals, I'm like, you know what, that's a good goal to have. I'm going to also put that on my list. If it wasn't on my list to begin with, then maybe it really wasn't that important to me. So I think it's very important for it to be important for you in order for you to start to make the right steps. And then at that point, I think one of the main things is you have to commit to those goals. You have to say, you know what, these are things that I am going to do this year. And then it's not that I want to do. If you say want and need, and then have to do, I think are completely different ways of looking at things. Like, it's like, this is my changes. This is what I want for myself. This is what's going to better me. So I think it's important to think about how it's going to, change your life in hopefully a positive manner. And of course, most of the time we're going to talk about, I know that's what we're talking about today, is a lot about when you're thinking about being in the gym, thinking about working out, thinking about doing cardio, and then of course, nutritional changes. I mean, those are usually the primary ones. If you look on realistic goals, like what are the ones people set, those are usually the top three.
Right.
Usually.
And yeah. So yeah, there is some foundation that needs to be laid out, and and working with people with physical, health, wellness, performance goals. Just to get into it, Wendy, one of the things about the acronym is SMART, right? When we look at goals and the different components of goal setting, we need to make SMART goals, right? So the first thing being, we want it to be specific, and that's the S. M, measurable. A, attainable. R, realistic. And T is for timely. So, and that's one of the things we're going to go over all of these components, but I think when we talk about goals and setting goals, and what we typically hear, and I know you hear this a lot, and I hear this a lot, being in the industries that we are in, being specific, like, I want to lose weight, again, to pick on one specific goal. But one of the things that you have to talk about is, well, what kind of weight you want? Are you okay with losing fat and muscle, or just losing 20 pounds no matter where it comes from? So one of the things that I like to talk about with my clients is, okay, well, let's try and really define what 20 pounds looks like and means to you. So, when it comes to being specific, what are some of the things that you could come across, Wendy, as far as clarifying what a client really wants to achieve, or even for you yourself?
Well, I think, when they say I want to lose a specific number, one of the first questions that I would ask you is, well, why that number? Why 20 pounds? Like, why not 30 pounds? Why not 5 pounds? And so I think it's important to find out what the attachment is to that particular number. And then to your point, then it goes, down the line of, okay, well, if we think about the measurable part of that, I think those kind of go hand in hand, especially if it's a weight loss goal that someone has, because how am I going to measure it? So I do circumference measurements with like tape. I will, because if somebody wants to become leaner, they may not see a drop in the scale. And that's what's really hard for someone to understand. And there is no such thing as muscle weighs more than fat. Your weight is your weight. However, the density, the size of it will matter. As you start to lose fat, you will lean out. And so there is a difference in how you look, even though there may not be a difference in, in the actual scale. And so sometimes people are like, I have been eating really well. I'm doing my cardio. I'm working out 3 to 5 times a week, and I'm doing all this stuff right. I'm not seeing any changes in the number on the scale. Then at that point, if I've taken the measurements and I say, yeah, but you've dropped 2 inches in your waistline, or your arms are now like very defined. I can see, like your shoulders. I can see these things that we couldn't see before. So I think it's important when we start to become specific, yes, find out what the attachment is to different numbers if it's weight loss, but then think about measurable, like how you're going to measure that, but then also make sure that it's, comes down to attainable, which is this something that somebody really realistically can do? Like if somebody weighs 100 pounds and they want to lose 20 pounds, that's to me not attainable or realistic, because like, why? Unless you're, right. That's not healthy. And so I think too, all of this needs to like kind of go hand in hand. And so when you're asking for that, it's like, it's hard for me not to go down the entire list, because they really do play on each other.
They do.
I don't know about you on the measurable side. If, like when we're talking about that, how do you measure goals?
Well, I like to bring up one of my first clients, when I moved back to San Diego, and I was working at one of the box gyms. One of my first clients her name's Lori, and she came to me, because she just wanted to be smaller. Now, when it comes to goal setting, that's that's an ambiguous goal. It's like, I just want to be smaller, right? Which a lot of times we can take that as, I want to lose weight, I want to lose fat, I want to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds. But she just wanted to be smaller. And over time, I think by the time I had to move facilities and, change positions, then, it meant letting her go. But to look at our progress over the 2-3 years that we worked together, she lost 3 pounds on the scale, right? So you talk about measurable. So 3 pounds on the scale, but she had gone from a size 10/12 down to a 4/6, right? So she she went down more than a few dress sizes, which her husband didn't like me all that much because it meant her buying a whole new wardrobe, right? But smaller, I mean, physically became smaller as far as the clothes that she wore. And, so if we were to look at being measurable, you have to look at, well, how are we going to measure success? What are going to be our, for lack of a better phrases, what are key performance indicators or KPIs? It just doesn't have to be a business related acronym, but, how are you gauging the success of your progress, right? So if someone says, I want to be smaller, does that mean, like you said, Wendy, you weigh less, or do you physically look smaller? So again, that density difference between a pound of muscle versus a pound of fat, they both weigh the same, but they take up different amounts of space. So for her, we lost the 3 pounds, but what that equated to once we took our circumference measurements, as you brought up, Wendy, is the fact that we looked at her density. Of course, we referred to the charts when we kind of took her tape measurements from her arm, her torso, her hips, her thighs. And then we calculated that she lost 11 pounds of fat and she had put on 8 pounds of muscle, with the difference of, the 3 pounds. So that's quite a big shift as far as her density goes. And hence the, going from a size 12 pants down to a size 4 pants. And Lori is, she was 5'11", 6 feet. Right.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
That's
we
great.
wound up finding, I mean, it actually became evident what our measurables were, which is like, okay, every few months she was like shopping for new clothes because she couldn't fit into her old ones. So what was like a very small shift on the scale, which by there we couldn't gauge that as successful, but by looking at the clothes that she actually wore, that was where we found and stumbled upon where she actually looked smaller. So that wound up being our measurable. So not everything has to be numbers. It could be dress sizes, it could be pant sizes, shirt sizes, things like that. So you got to find something that works for you.
Yes. And if you are just now joining us, I'm Wendy Batts here with Ken Miller. And today we're talking about auditing your New Year's resolutions and really just making sure that you're setting very specific goals. And so when we talk about specific goals, we're talking really about SMART goals. And so far we've talked about S being specific. And then of course the M being measurable, which we just went into detail about. So when we talk about A and attainable, Ken, when you think about attainable and you're trying to talk to your clients, and when we're talking about, hopefully all of you fitness enthusiasts out there, when you're talking about attainable, how do you describe that to someone?
Well, I'm the last one to want to dash someone's dreams and say, no, that's not going to happen, right? Because everything is possible. You just have to figure out, okay, is this, and you mentioned commitment earlier, and consistency. Are you going to be able to put this much energy, effort, and time into your goals? So, I just recently, I took on a new client a couple months ago, and one of the things that he shared with me was, he sent me some pictures of, the body type that he wants to work towards. And of course, 6-pack abs, broad cannonball shoulders, defined quads, all the good stuff. And, here we are, we're looking at, him who's, in his 50s, and then these pictures of models that are, who are in their 20s easily. So I'm the last one to say, you know what, this is not an attainable goal, right? You're trying to rewind the hand, bring back the clock, hands of time, and you're trying to recapture where, what, you were, 20, 30 years ago. But, as far as attainable goes, yeah, you could do it. You just have to, okay, all the things you said, how's your exercise routine? What's your recovery like? How's your nutrition? So those, the more, I guess, the broader or the longer reach for your goal, that's going to be more that you're going to have to exert in energy, time, and effort to get there. So anybody can get anything, right? It's just, do you have the commitment and the willpower to get it, right?
Yeah. And I'm the same with you, and I think, the A, which is attainable, goes into really the R for me is realistic. And when I say realistic, like you said, you've got an older gentleman that's looking at these, fitness models. Usually is where they're finding them on magazines, where that's what their job is to look a certain way in order to get the job or earn, to land whatever deal that they're trying to do. But for, what's been hard is what you see on social media sometimes, what you see on television shows. And there's one particular show that has been out for multiple seasons. And, the overall outcome are people that are overweight, extremely overweight, obese, and that, we see an hour of them on television working with trainers, literally getting their tail kicked. And, they're working hard. There's tears that have been shed. And, there was one episode where the trainer put on some kind of vest, and they were pulling a semi truck, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what is the outcome for that? I mean, yes, I have clients do sled pushes. I have them do, maybe a parachute run or something where there's resistance or something like that. But it's realistically, when they would get back on the scale every single week, there were a tremendous amount of pounds that were shed. And so, they're saying, well, I saw on television that I could actually lose 10 pounds in 1 week. And I want to be able to do that because I want to lose 20 pounds in a month. And I think I can do it. Now, anybody can do something like that, but is it healthy? Why? And then on top of that, when you're watching a television show, you don't know what is going on in the background. Plus, these individuals are extremely overweight, so they have a ton of weight to lose. And in the very beginning, when they start doing something and they haven't been doing anything, they're going to lose weight at a more rapid pace. But eventually they're going to plateau and they're going to have to change it up and do something different. Plus, somebody's cooking their food. Someone's, they are being watched 24/7 that we don't see on the back end. And so I think a lot of times when we're talking about realistic, whether it's, setting numbers at a timeline that's not realistic, and or you think about, okay, I'm going to start doing this particular diet, and you didn't really talk to a registered dietitian, you didn't speak with your physician. You have to be careful with that kind of stuff, because oftentimes you may start this quote diet. It may actually allow you to lose weight. You may see some changes that you're very, very happy with, but how attainable is that? Too. So that's why I said they kind of go hand in hand, because if you're never eating a certain, type of macronutrient that is important for you, and you're working out really, really hard because you're on a Christmas break or a spring break or whatever it is, can you realistically maintain that, as well as your lifestyle, the work-life balance, self-care, that we always talk about that people are missing, is that balance. And so I think, I'm going to pass it over to you here in a second, Ken, but I think, attainable and realistic to me, very, very important, and something that I really think that when you're setting goals, this is why people fail, is because it's not realistic into what they truly can fit into their lifestyle.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and it is a big thing to manage expectations from that standpoint, because when you have to, open up that chapter in the book that they have to be able to, this is what it's going to look like, right? And it's, can we look like, yeah, but how long is that going to be realistic when you're working 60 hours a week? You've got, I'm not saying kids are an excuse, but you've got obligations, family, you've got social, you've got career obligations. Those are the things that have to be considered and put into the pot and into the equation, because you can get there. Like we said, those transformation shows, a lot of people don't realize they have physical therapists, they have doctors, they have massage therapists. So there's a lot of behind the camera work that's being done. Are these guys getting that the second they leave the set and they leave, the camp that they're in, are they going to be able to supplement that or find a support system that's going to help them get there? Because it is such an aggressive format for those shows. But even to take that to a fraction of the degree of what does maintenance look like, what does time frame look like? A lot of people want to do the work. Yeah, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to run. I'm going to cook my meals. But the question is when are you going to do it? right?
Right.
Which I think is the wall that a lot of us hit. So it's like, great, we know what to do, but where's that going to fall into your calendar? For me, I have to get up at 2:30 in the morning if I want to, if I want to get my meditation in, prepare my meals for the day, get my kids ready and all of that good stuff for me to get there. I mean, there's a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just you have to put the forethought into it. It's like, you know what to do. When are you going to do it? And how's that going to fit into your schedule? Which, goes into the whole equation of, okay, is it realistic with everything else that has to be balanced in your life?
Yep. And we're talking about auditing your New Year's resolution. I'm here with Ken Miller. My name is Wendy Batts on Random Fit. And so far, we've talked about our SMART goals. We've talked about specific, measurable, attainable, and then realistic. And then now we're going to talk about timely. And I think this is also another thing that when we're setting goals, we need to be very specific in time and then make sure that the time frame that we're putting this in is realistic. So for example, I usually run a half marathon in April with my family, the last weekend of April. And this is something that we have done for multiple years. And it's one way that I try to work on trying to keep my family engaged in doing physical activity. And even though I'm not a huge fan on running all the time, I'm actually not a runner. It's something that I know gets people outside. It gets my family moving and it gets them thinking about, oh, if I don't start to do something now, when actually that day comes for the half, I'm going to be miserable. And I've done that multiple times personally. However, my family's been very good about it because, they are scheduling it out and they know this is something that we really try to plan on to do together. And so the last one with the T being timely, I think when you're writing down your goal, if I say, okay, in April, I need to run 13.1 miles, and this is January 1st, I'm giving myself time to put in the mileage, and I'm actually going to have to work backwards on, looking at different running programs. And if I'm going from like couch to nothing, like I haven't been running at all, and now I want to actually go to this goal, 4 months is actually a pretty good time frame for me to be realistic and do it safely. And so it's something that I think is good. Now, if I haven't been running and I am like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to run a half at the end of the month, that's probably not the safest things for your joints. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, but if you also want to run, a 5 to 7 minute mile for 13.1 and you haven't been running, to me, that's not realistic. It's, can someone do it? Absolutely. If they have some kind of foundation to run. So I think when we're talking about timely, this is where a lot of times people fall off, is because they say they want to lose a certain amount of weight. They say they're committed to doing it, but they don't give themselves a realistic timeline in order to complete it. And then doing check-ins to make sure that they're making, really good gains to hit that end goal at that end time that was set. And I think that's where a lot of times we fail. Not for me as a trainer, I'm always looking every 4 to 6 weeks, making sure they're moving correctly, making sure my clients are happy, making sure that we're seeing the progress. But, setting that time, I think, is very, very important and often, unfortunately, overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. How far is the run that you do in April? Is that
13.1 mile. Yeah, 13.1. I did a marathon one time. I wanted to do something really stupid for myself before I turned 25. And I'm like, you know what? There's a marathon I'm going to run. I didn't train right for it. I was working super late hours because I was working my real job. And then I had a weekend job in order to try to pay off my student loans. And so I would run with a friend just for fun. And we would run just a few times. Then we'd go pig out because we just figured that we burned all these calories. We might as well eat them. And the day of the marathon, I was at 16.2 miles. And I thought, oh, instead of thinking I just ran 16 miles, I thought to myself, I've got 10 more to go and I want to die. It was not my thing. I'm not a runner. But, when I and then I couldn't move for a week. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Who does this? And you know what? Those marathon and ultra marathoners and Ironman guys, like, I love you dearly, because the fact that you can do that and you love it, all the power to you. Just not my thing. And I'm not kidding. I started running with this guy. I thought he was so handsome. I'm like, man, this is pre-boyfriend, pre-husband, pre-everything. I was single. And then it's like, when I actually went on a date with him, he got my number. I was like, yeah, I scored big. He's a runner. He's got a good career. And then I went on the date and I'm like, what was wrong with me? I didn't even think it was the same person. I was literally out of my mind. Yeah. So just so you know, be careful with doing stupid things like that. Set smart goals, people.
Well,
Don't end
it's
up
good that you got to the point where you could actually see their face. When I ran again, that was a bucket list check off for me. All I saw was the backs of people's backs, right? I wasn't looking at anybody's faces, just people just passing me up. So that, yeah, to your point, I checked that one off. But again, back to the whole timely thing. I did the same thing, over whatever 10 years I've run, I don't know, 18, 19 half marathons, but for the goal of, okay, I want to lose weight. So one way it's going to keep me accountable is to sign up for these races, right? Mostly half marathons, a couple 10Ks here and there. But I don't know. I had more than a handful of times where it was, couch to half marathon, because I'd look at my watch and go, oh, geez, I got a half marathon next weekend. I should get a couple runs in. And so over time, it was, okay, when you talk about setting specific goals, that's when I started saying, okay, I want to run my half under this time, or I want to be able to, run without injury. You're getting kind of older when your goal has to be without injury, right? You have to add
you want to
that
get out
in
of
there.
bed the next day. I think you're asking a lot. So. and in all reality, I'm the exact same ways. Like I'm pretty active in my career. I'm constantly like moving around. I'm moving weights around. I'm showing and demoing and doing all this stuff. So I'm like, am I in pretty good shape? I mean, yes, I'm in pretty good shape in order to do my job. However, I wasn't in pretty good running shape. And so every single year I get on that starting line, like, man, I really wish I would have actually trained for this the right way. Because one year I set a goal, a very specific time goal. I actually had a friend of mine who was a runner that said he was going to run with me the entire time. He's actually someone that I work very closely with. And he's like, we're going to hit this goal. For him, it was like, he probably could have walked. But for me, I felt like I was running as fast as I possibly could because I ran sprints. Like I was a sprinter. I was not a long distance runner. So running long distance is completely not my thing. But again, I wanted to do this. I had set a goal for myself, and literally we were on mile number 18. And he was like, if we don't book it, you're not going to hit your goal. And I'm like, oh, I've already ran 18 miles. Like, I'm hitting this goal. And he was like, well, then don't drink any water. We got to run. And I literally thought I was seeing stars. I'm like, this is not good.
Oh, no.
And you know what? I hit that goal by 10 seconds.
Wow.
10 seconds. I crossed that line, and people, like my husband was standing there. Everyone's like, she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it. I'm like, the hell I'm not. And I'm running as fast as I can. He's like, sprint, run as fast as you can. And something kicked in where like I sprinted across that line. But if I wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't have made it. And literally people are like, she's not going to do it. I'm like, where's the positive attitude? I am going to do it. So just so you know, people, you can do it. You just have to put it in your mind. It's your mindset.
Yeah.
And those that are joining us, we are talking about auditing your New Year's resolutions. It is super important that you audit them. It's super important that they're smart goals. And there's also just a ton of different things to consider when you set goals for yourself. And this is a new year. This is a new time for you guys to become, just become smart in your thinking, especially if there's specific goals you want to hit.
Right. And I mean, and you can do the whole vision board thing, but if you have those components down, right? Is it specific? Is it, how are you measuring it? Are you taking the whole picture in mind? And do you have a deadline? Do you have a date? What's the saying, Wendy? A goal without a due date is just a dream, right?
Oh, I like that. Where did you see that?
I'm not, I don't know. It's something that's just kind of been rattling around in my head. Maybe it's Anthony
maybe
Robbins.
You should trademark that if that's not somebody else.
I'm not taking any credit for that because someone's going to ping me and say, hey, wait a second. I hear you're stealing my phrase. But, you got to have that time. Or it's just a dream. It's just, something you did on a whim. But, it's these are the things you want to, just put it down. One of the things that I say to my clients is have a 3x5 card, right? And I'm just going to pull a 3x5 card right here. It's something I keep a 3x5 card. I don't know. That's, you have that 3x5 card, have the goal, written down, and, remind yourself every day and keep it on the forefront, because, every thought that you have, every every moment that you have available to, kind of think about where you are in life, whatever that goal may be, is your decision, is your next decision getting you a step closer or a step farther away from that goal, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think, to that point, then we also have to think about, the challenges that we also are going to come across. Because, we can set these goals. We can say, you know what, today is the day I'm going to start this. I'm going to change, and I want to change. But you also have to think about what are going to be your roadblocks, and then how are you going to get past those roadblocks? And so it's the little things that I think sometimes we can actually, we already know. Like for me, it's timing, and it's like, I know that I should cook dinners more. I need to do meal prep on the weekends in order for me to do, like really good meals throughout the week. I need to plan it out, and sitting down, I need to put that in my calendar. And I think that's one thing. Schedule time for yourself. We've already talked about self-care, taking care of yourself, your own workouts. Then also think about, what are you going to be eating throughout the week? In order to spend less money, make a shopping list, stick to that shopping list, try to avoid buying the junk food that we all love. We're going to, think about what we ate over the holidays and what we need to do to counteract all those empty calories we probably drink, and then probably sweets that we don't usually have within our diet. And, and I'm like you know what, I have to think, and I'm reaching for this here, but I have little sticky notes everywhere. And so this is something that my little son drew for me. It's him, It's his monster truck and my monster truck. This is a monster truck, y'all, if you can't see it. It's his drawing. He's 5. He loves monster trucks. And his thing is like, he wants to do more family things. That's his goal, which means it now needs to be mine too. And so I'm like, if you could do anything this year, what is it? And he's like, spend more time with you, mommy. I drew us monster trucks. And I'm like, I put these little Post-it notes there, like, positive affirmations, things that are going to try to keep me like, aiming towards the things that I need to do to better myself, but then also better who I am as a parent, a mom, and just my career overall.
Right. And since you shared a Post-it note, here's one for me. It's like, failure is your friend. And I keep that more as a mindset, to keep things going, and don't be afraid of failing, because everybody fails. And when it comes to failure, that's how we learn. That's how we make progress. That's how you know that you're trying, is when, you hit those those speed bumps, and, unless you're failing, you're not trying. And that's the whole thing about goals, right? So, I know that our conversation has been biased towards body composition change, but, easily goal setting can be for performance. It could be just something as reading more, but, overall, the reminders are key. First thing you look at in the morning, refine it, redo it. It's the last thing you look at night. That way your brain, while you're sleeping, it's still working for you. Right? It's still working, helping you towards the goals. You just have to remind the brain what it's trying to work for. Right?
Yes, and try to keep it positive. Don't go to bed with all the the baggage that you thought about, all the negative stuff throughout the day. And
that's right.
And that's why we wanted to do this. So we're auditing your New Year's resolution with Wendy Batts and Ken Miller on Random Fit. And I think my key takeaways are, if you are going to set goals, make sure they're SMART. And again, just to reiterate what SMART stands for, it's specific, it's measurable, they're attainable, realistic, and they're timely. Those are the things that when you sit down for each goal that you have, if you have 3 different goals, you want to put SMART goals with each one of those 3. Look at it, reevaluate it, maybe even, and pass it to a friend. And one thing that I strongly suggest, no matter what it is, and like you said, Ken, it doesn't have to be about weight loss. It doesn't have to be about, nutrition. Whatever your goals are, have a buddy. Let them hold you accountable. Like if I was going to read more, and Ken was my buddy system, it'd be like, hey, did you read any this week? You know what? I didn't, but I need to schedule this time to do it on Sunday. So then I'm starting over on a new week, towards my goal, if that's what it was. And I think buddy system, trying to become more active. If you're not, currently active, it could be something as simple as, we've heard this all the time, park further away than when you're, so you have to walk more, try to drive less, walk more, is that like move more, eat less type thing. Like I said, do the shopping list, call your friends, your family. I mean, during the pandemic, people were calling everyone all the time. Now the pandemic is quote over, but now kind of rehappening again. I'm starting to get phone calls again for people I hadn't talked to in like almost a year. I'm like, wait, where have you been?
Right.
They're like, oh, well, I was trying to get back in my life, but now I'm homebound. So what's up?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, and I think, with all those points, just, the positive affirmations, that's and you touched on that already, and that's something that we just have to keep in mind. It's like, you're smart, you're funny, and darn it, people like you, right? So if you say that to yourself, was that a Saturday Night Live little skit there? Back in the day. But
yes.
Here's the thing, just you got to remind yourself, you're a good person, you keep trying, and nothing's going to stop you but you. So, with all of that, I think we've given some people, or I'm sorry, hopefully all of our listeners, something to think about when it comes to, what does it really take to, see success when it comes to setting your goals for this year's New Year's resolutions, if that's something that you do. So, Wendy, thank you again, as always, for all the experience and the knowledge that you shared today. And it's always great working with you.
Well, I think another key takeaway is if you're going to run a half marathon, make sure you get to training too, right? But
yeah. At least get 2 runs in before running day. Again, it's without injury. I'm going to do whatever without injury. With the parentheses, just making sure that's part of the goal. So,
but super fun. So thanks for doing this with me today.
Yeah, always fun, as always. But looking forward to more as we get into 2022. So for all of you guys listening to us here on Random Fit, thank you so much, as always. If there's something that you want us to talk about on this platform, please like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, and we will be more than happy to join you again talking about the things you guys want to hear about. So until next time, take care and be well.